I started to have some really, really strange symptoms. No idea what it was. And then one night we had went out and had dinner. Eating at a restaurant, ate it all the time, eating things that I've eaten all the time. And the next thing I know, I'm waking up in my living room, covered, drenched in sweat with two paramedics.
Katlyn, how did you find Carnivore?
Well, it's kind of been like an evolution. So, when I was, pretty much my whole life from about the time I was about 9, I struggled with weight. So I tried all these fad diets, the diet pills, you name it. I've probably done it. Um, so I actually first heard about carnivore from Michaela Peterson. So I follow a lot of YouTube channels and I followed her dad and then I found her and then she talked about her diet and her story was absolutely incredible. And by that time I was really deep into nutrition and trying to fix myself. So kind of my backstory of fixing myself, I guess you want to call it phase one, is after going through years and years and years of struggling with weight. When I was 26, I opted to have weight loss surgery. At the time, the only thing was really big at that time was the gastric bypass surgery. I mean, there was the lap band, but a lot of people weren't doing that. It wasn't as common. The gastric bypass was the most common. And I just felt like I had no other choices. I didn't know a lot about nutrition at that time, didn't think about, any of that. So I went ahead and had the surgery. And actually, the crazy thing about the surgery was when I went in and asked my doctor about having the surgery. At the time, I actually technically didn't qualify for the surgery, which was crazy because I'm 5'3" and I was like 265 pounds. And I could barely climb a flight of stairs, and it was just absolutely awful. And so I actually had to gain weight to qualify, which was insane. Hindsight, would I have done it again? Maybe not, knowing what I know now. But honestly, I don't have any regrets about having it. So I went ahead and had the surgery. That was in January of 2007. And then about 2 years or so after that, I started to have some really, really strange symptoms. Um, no idea what it was. And then one night we had went out and had dinner. Eating at a restaurant, ate it all the time, eating things that I've eaten all the time. And the next thing I know, I'm waking up in my living room, covered, drenched in sweat with two paramedics. Apparently I don't know if I had blacked out. I have a gap in my memory. But apparently my blood glucose had dropped drastically. I had a blood glucose of 25, which is really, really low because standard is average is about in the 80s. So I had a sugar of about 25 at the time. I was taken to the ER. And at that time, I was told, well, basically, I had the pancreas of somebody that was 290 pounds, because that's what I weighed before surgery. And I was basically just making too much insulin, was what I was told. So I was sent home with a glucose meter and good luck. I'm like, okay, I don't know what to do with this, but okay. So I did a little research on what to do about it. Got yelled at by the bariatric surgeon that had done my surgery, said, because I didn't let her know that I was having these symptoms. I didn't connect the two. Like, I didn't realize that what I was experiencing was a result of the surgery because that wasn't told to me. It wasn't common. I would later find out that it was actually quite uncommon, at least at the time, because we're talking around in the early 20-teens. So, 2010, 2011, 2012, not a lot was really known about it. So I just dealt with the symptoms. I would carry around glucose tablets with me, candy, stuff like that. Um, just, in case something happened, I pop a couple of those and it would bring my blood sugar back up and I would be fine. Fast forward over the years, though, symptoms got worse and worse and worse. And I was having episodes multiple times, sometimes multiple times a day, definitely multiple times a week. It wasn't until I actually went on a ketogenic diet in 2016, and I just went on the ketogenic diet I had gained some weight back, because I had initially lost about 160 pounds, and I had gained some weight back, and I was pushing about 200 pounds at that time. So I went on the ketogenic diet, and when I went on the keto diet, I noticed, wait, I'm not having these symptoms anymore. What's going on? And I made that connection. I'm like, it's diet. It's got to be. So I started doing some research, looking into some literature. And by that time, 2016, 2017, a lot more was known about what I had. And at the time, I still didn't know what it was. So I did some more research, finally put a name to it. So apparently it's something called reactive hypoglycemia or postprandial hypoglycemia. So really what that means is that if I eat a meal, say just a standard meal, steak, potatoes, whatever, um, I'll get a big spike in the glucose, like a drastic spike, but where normal people will just release a little bit of insulin at a time to bring that back down, mine dumps it. I basically have an insulin dump. And depending on what it is, that insulin dump could be super, super drastic. And so what will end up happening is I'll go from really high to really low. And sometimes it can happen in a matter of 45 minutes, but I've had reactions up to 3 hours later where I was like, wow, what happened? Um, so yeah, there was that. And so I started doing the research and really linked the nutrition to that. So I managed it for quite a while. And then, you get carb creep, life happens. And I kind of wanted to eat normal, like everybody else, so I played around with things like paleo, a plan known as Trim Healthy Mama. And so I was able to add some carbs back in, but not really. I kept having symptoms. And then fast forward to just recently, I had mostly had it under control. By then I kind of really knew that diet was a big, big, big factor in keeping my symptoms under control. But I started to notice that I started to become way more sensitive to even things that I had been eating for years, or even just like I could eat one thing this week and 2 weeks later eat the exact same thing and have an entirely different reaction. So I started wearing a CGM because I was like, there's got to be something to this. So I spent the money, bought myself access to a CGM for 6 months. And it gave me some information, but it also caused a lot of confusion. And from what I understand, there's so many other things that affect your blood sugar that it's not just the food. There's other things, there's cortisol and everything. So there's a lot more to the picture. It's just not as simple as that. But it did give me a little bit of insight. I learned that if I got a bad night's sleep, carbohydrates the next day, off the table completely. Forget it. Like if I had anything, it was like this huge, huge reaction. Like I had no glucose control. at all if I had had a bad night's sleep. And I think that was due to the higher levels of cortisol in my system from just having bad sleep. So, um, so Thanksgiving this last year, I was invited over to a friend's house. We had a lovely meal. I ate something that I felt was totally fine for me, mostly turkey. So my plate was mostly the turkey. I had a little bit of green beans and a little bit of sweet potato, and that's all I ate. And any other day in the months prior, that would have been a completely safe meal. I have no idea what happened, but I had one of the worst reactions that I had had in years. No idea what happened. I have a gap in my memory. My brain wasn't right for days after that. And that was it. I'm like, I can't keep doing this. I am so scared that I'm actually having like permanent brain damage from this, from the constant spike, crash from every meal I ate. It was just I couldn't do it anymore. So I started to go back to the keto diet because I knew that worked really well for me. And then I said, you know what? Let's just do it. I'm just going to start doing carnivore. I'm just going to do it. So I started binging all things carnivore, like all things I could find. And so January 1st, that was it. I was done, and I'm so glad. Because I want my life back. I'm done with this. I'm scared I'm going to lose my driver's license because I've had this happen, these sugar crashes when I've been driving. I had an incident about 5 years ago where I was driving home from work. I had went out with some coworkers after work. I was driving home. I was about 2 miles from my house. I have no idea how I got home. None. I was terrified to check I have a dash cam on my camera in my car. I was terrified to look at it. I never did. I never went back and looked at it. I'm sure I ran lights, I ran stop signs. I managed to not crash into anything. I think it was all just muscle memory. All I know is I pulled into the garage and I don't remember how I got home. And it scared the crap out of me. It was just so terrifying. And I don't want to go through that anymore.
Wow. So from January 1, like, how have things been since you've been carnivore?
Well, so starting in January 1, I went ahead and kept the glucose monitor on because I was just kind of curious. And of course, kind of nothing. I mean, really. And that was kind of what I was expecting. I mean, I'm just eating meat and fat. And that was really the only thing that ever was never an issue for me for all these years. Like those things were never an issue for me. I knew that if I ate those things, I felt fine. I wasn't necessarily monitoring my glucose all that time, but I felt okay. I felt totally fine. Um, so I wore it for a little while and then I just stopped wearing it. I was like, well, why am I wearing this? There's no reason for it. But what I've been doing, the first 30 days, I was super, super strict. I actually went off coffee for a little while, which was not fun. But I went off coffee for a little while because I was just kind of curious because I know that caffeine can be a trigger for reactive hypoglycemia. But it seems to be only in the presence of carbohydrates because when I added the coffee back in, nothing. I mean, a little bit, I might get a little bit but my blood sugar stayed pretty much stayed below 100 or 105 since January because I'm not eating the carbohydrates at all. None. And the other thing that I've noticed too is no more gas, no more bloating. I actually had, so kind of going back, I actually had 2 bowel obstruction surgeries too, since I had my gastric bypass. So in 2013, I had a bowel obstruction surgery. And then in 2021, I had another one where they actually had to remove part of my bowel. And it was awful, like absolutely awful. I thought I was going to die. It was like the worst thing ever. I wouldn't even wish it on my worst enemy. Um, And then I would just always have gas. I would always have gas. I was always dealing with constipation. I thought, oh, I need to eat more fiber. And that was kind of how the carb creep came back. And I was like, I need to eat more fiber. I need to eat more fruit. I need to eat more veggies. Even though I didn't really like them, I ate them because I thought they're good for you. Fiber's good for you. And, in hindsight, I'm wondering if all of that wasn't why I ended up with the bowel obstructions. I don't know. Maybe.
Right. Yeah. Um, so, I mean, it's pretty horrific what you've been through. Um, and so since January 1, you've had no episodes at all. You've had everything's kind of clear sailing.
Everything has been incredible. Of course, have that. I definitely had that tiger blood feeling, definitely right at the very beginning, which I remember having when I actually went keto years ago. Uh, I feel fantastic. I feel like I don't have to sleep as much. I mean, I'm only sleeping probably 6 hours a night, but I wake up and I have tons of energy. I don't even feel like I need coffee in the morning. It's more of a kind of a habit type of thing. Like I don't feel like I need it anymore. Like I was drinking coffee in the morning and then I would have coffee in the afternoon and energy drinks and all this other stuff. And I just don't feel like I need any of that. At all. And, I didn't really I've been off sugar for a very long time. So sugar cravings was not really an issue. So, of course, that was gone because I had given that up years ago. Like I had to give that up years ago with this condition. So that wasn't really even a part of the factor, but, just not being hungry all the time, the brain fog gone. Like I wasn't dealing with the brain fog anymore. I'm in college actually. So doing all this stuff trying to fix myself and getting into nutrition and becoming passionate about nutrition and health and stuff, I actually decided in my 40s to finally go to college to change my career and get a degree in nutrition because I want to help people to not have to deal with this stuff. Like I don't want people to have to go through what I've went through because I really think food's medicine. Honestly, I'm not big into the pharmaceuticals. I think they have their place, but um, they certainly didn't do me any favors. For sure. Um, yeah. So there's just been all of that, and yeah, so all the bloating, all that stuff gone, just gone. I used to have really bad rosacea, like really really bad rosacea, and a lot of that's gone completely. Like I have a little bit psoriasis that's starting to recede. I went and had my hair done recently, and my beautician was actually telling me, she goes, "Your hair seems so much healthier," and I'm like, I wonder if it's all that fat I'm eating.
That's awesome. Um,
Yeah.
so how have you been eating day to day, and do you have to kind of eat smaller amounts because of the surgery you've had?
So the foundation of my diet is beef, butter, bacon, eggs. And that seems to be like what I crave. Early on I kept trying to eat chicken, which I loved chicken, dark meat chicken. I find that it's not very satisfying. I don't like the taste of it. I crave beef. It's so bizarre. I didn't expect that. I mean, I've always liked beef, but I just didn't expect that switch. So I mostly eat that. For a while, I've only been eating about 2 meals a day because that's all I've been hungry for, which has been great. Because then I don't end up with that distraction. I'm really busy. I work full time. I'm going to, I'm going to school, so I'm really super busy. So I don't need that distraction, and it's been really, really great to not have that distraction of feeling like, okay, oh my God, I have to eat something. And I was eating like six, 7 times a day, every couple hours. As far as volume, I can't eat as much, which is fine. But I'll tell you something. The last 3 or 4 days, I have been ravenous. I am so hungry and I don't understand. like this morning I got up, I was a little hungry. I had a big meal last night, went to bed, I was completely full, woke up hungry, which is unusual. I usually don't wake up hungry. And I woke up hungry. I checked my ketones, which were high. So I'm like, okay, I don't understand why I'm hungry. So I just had my coffee. And then as soon as I finished my coffee, I said, oh my God, I have to eat. So I had a ribeye set aside, a little one, not a really big one, 7 ounces, pretty decent size. I mean, for me, that's a pretty decent sized piece of meat. And I'm like, okay, I'll eat that and I'll be fine. And I ate that and I was still hungry. And then I ate some eggs and I was still hungry. And then I ate some bacon and then I had some salt. By the time 11 o'clock rolled around, I had eaten an entire day's worth of calories. It was insane. I'm like, what is happening? Like, I'm actually still really hungry right now. I've been trying to, it's not, I'm not ravenous right now, but man, you put a plate of food in front of me, I will tear it up right now. Like, it's just insane. And so I actually asked the community, I'm like, is this normal? Like, I'm about 70 days in and I haven't had this happen because I was totally satisfied on the 2 meals. And now, and today, I just insane, insane. So apparently it's
Y
normal.
You're feeling good, right?
I feel fantastic.
Mm. So, how have people around you been reacting to this? Have they seen that you're not eating the quote unquote regular food?
I think it's because most people that are around me, they knew that I had been struggling with diet for a long time. It wasn't really much of a surprise to them. I know when I talked to my mother about this, she she gave me a lecture. She's like, "You're only eating meat. You know that's going to cause you to have heart disease and all this other stuff, and you're going to have a heart attack." But I think she realizes that that's what I need. And my plan is to not. It's not. I'm not going to stay like 100% carnivore. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make my own diet, like my own personalized list of foods that I know that I can eat on a consistent basis and not have a reaction. I want freedom. I want freedom from wearing a glucose monitor. I want freedom from anxiety of going out to eat. Every time my husband would say, hey, so and so wants us to go out and have dinner. And I'm like, okay, where are we going? And I would have to check the menu and I'm like, okay, what can I eat? You know, Going out to eat was such a hassle. And so I just ate at home all the time, which is better, obviously. But, I also like to go out with friends and I like somebody else to cook for a while, which is nice. But I would have so much anxiety about going out to eat and I just hated it. So what I'm doing is I'm using carnivore as an elimination diet and I'm just trying to add a few things that I really would like to have back in my diet, whether it just be an occasional thing or a regular thing. I just want to feel like I don't have to think about it. Like, these are the foods that I eat, and that's all I eat. So, I obviously coffee is not technically carnivore, and I do fine with that. I've also added back in unsweetened chocolate, seems to not be a problem, which I'm happy about. I know it's high in oxalates, but I'm not really doing this for that. And it doesn't seem to be causing any skin issues or anything like that. So I've added that back in, and that's really about it. Like, and then I do the sweeteners. Like, I'll do stevia or allulose. I seem to be just fine with that. It doesn't seem to affect my glucose or my insulin because I've been consuming it for years and I've had my insulin checked. And surprisingly, I expected when I had my insulin checked, my insulin would be high because I figured I overproduce insulin. It's not. It's actually quite low. It's actually really good. My A1C is actually really, really good. So I have no indications that I actually have insulin resistance. I'm sure I have some. Um, I have to have something. I mean, I obviously have a metabolic condition, you know. Um, but that's my ultimate goal with this, but I think that I'm probably just going to stick pretty much with the base. It's what I love to eat. I have no desire to add back in vegetables. I never liked them. I do kind of miss potatoes, but that's okay. I'm okay with that. I miss fruit a little bit because I do like fruit, but I'm okay with it. I may, and it may be something I'll experiment with at some point, but I don't have to have it in my life. But there's things like I'd like to be able to have nuts and stuff like that. And I know that when I did a ketogenic diet, I tolerated those things fine, but I want to introduce them very slowly, one at a time, really pay attention to the data with the CGM and pay attention to it over a longer period of time so that I could get a more consistent reading of say, okay, yeah, I know that this is safe for me. At least in this amount, this is safe for me. So that's my ultimate goal.
Nice. Um, so, the thing that I find the best about that you just kind of the best about eating carnivore that you kind of alluded to there is that it's just the eating part of it is just so simple, and you get it done, and it's out of the way, and you don't have to think
Yeah.
about it. There's not that
Yeah.
constant kinda nagging at the back of your mind, kinda,
The
"Well,
food
what am I
noise.
gonna eat now? Next
Yeah.
food, next food, next food."
Yeah, the food noise. The food noise is gone. I actually made the joke, I think early on about who needs Ozempic? I mean, I'm on carnivore. It's like nature's GLP-1, meat and fat. It's fat probably. It's probably more the fat than the protein. Um, who needs it? I actually looked into that. I actually had considered pharmaceuticals. I'm not big into pharmaceuticals, but I had, I considered them. And I actually found the GLP ones like pretty interesting. But with my history of bowel obstructions, there was like no way, no, I'm not doing that because that's one of the big side effects of it. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. I actually went and saw an endocrinologist for the first time. So I dealt with this for over 16 years, and I kind of self-diagnosed. And I finally, after the incident in Thanksgiving, I actually went to see an endocrinologist who just verified everything that I kind of already knew at that point. And at that point, I was on carnivore. And he suggested the GLP ones to me. And then he asked me, he goes, well, so what have you been doing? He goes, he pulled my CGM information. He goes, so what have you been doing lately? And I said, yeah, I'm eating a carnivore diet, basically. I said, I just eat meat. He goes, you don't want the drug, and what you're doing seems to be working. So, and diet is the best intervention to control the symptoms. So he was totally fine with it. I was not expecting that. I was expecting a pushback, honestly. Now, I haven't seen my primary care physician since I started this, so I'm not sure what she's going to say, but she seems to be pretty open-minded. I'm not too concerned about her reaction to it. So everybody's actually been pretty supportive about it. My husband's very supportive about it. He sits there and listens to me, listen to all these podcasts, listen to you, listen to Dr. Kiltz, all you guys. Because I'm sitting here, I'm watching these podcasts all the time, and he's listening to me. He goes, that's some pretty great stuff, and I have a feeling I might persuade him to kind of move that direction. He already eats fairly low carb and he eats pretty good. So I have a feeling that he might start moving more towards like maybe not carnivore, but I could see him moving towards like a ketovore diet type of diet. So everybody's been really supportive. My mom stopped nagging me, though. I think that she's still, I nag her too. I mean, she ain't perfect. I mean,
It's always a good sign when your elders stop nagging you. It's like, "Okay, they've realized that something I'm doing is correct. That's why they're leaving me alone."
yeah. Well, I think it helps too that she knows that I've been studying nutrition for a while, and she knows. She's like, "Yeah, okay." She was just kept going, "Well, you need this and you need this and you need this." And I'm like, "No, you really actually don't. What do you think the cows eat?" I mean, she goes, "Where are you getting all your vitamins and minerals and stuff from?" I'm like, "Well, what do you think the cows eat?" they're just digesting it for me, and then I eat it. I mean, you know, and she'll argue with me, and then I'll just say, well, who's studying nutrition and who's not, and she lets it go. She's just being my mom. I'm 44, and she's still my mom, so she's gonna still mom me. That's okay.
Right.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. She trusts me that I know what I'm doing. She's still
Mm,
gonna nag me because that's what moms do.
yeah. So, Katlyn, if a friend asked you about doing carnivore, and they said, "Okay, I want to try this. I want to give it a good go," what advice would you give them to kind of maximize their chances of success?
I would tell them to start slow. Start slowly eliminating things. Um, Obviously, if they're eating the standard American diet, which is great, first thing I would say, cut out all the processed food. Start with that, and then the next thing would be to maybe eliminate sugar, because that's a hard one for people, and eliminate grains, and then just start eliminating things, one, two things at a time. Because I find that is if you lower your carbohydrates gradually over time, the keto flu, or the symptoms that you get from going low carb or no carb, they're not as drastic. I mean, you still have them, but they're definitely not as drastic. Because I think that's the mistake that people make is they jump into it right off the bat. They have these symptoms, and they're like, "Oh, this doesn't work for me." They don't give a chance. They don't even give it a chance to even work, and then they just give up, and they're like, I can't deal with this anymore. So that would be probably my biggest advice, is just to start slow and gradual. There's nothing wrong with that, you know, even if it takes you a few months, because it depends. Everybody's starting in a different place. I mean, for me, I was already eating pretty dang clean. Um, I wasn't eating the sugar and the grains and stuff like that because I had given those up years ago. So it wasn't as difficult for me. Like, it wasn't a huge transition. But when I did keto, it was definitely a bigger transition when I had went keto years ago. So I had learned a lot from that. So that would be my biggest advice. And then I would just tell them, and then gradually add in the meat that you like. Eat what you like. Eat the meat that you like. And if you don't like beef, then don't eat beef. That's okay. If you can't afford, a ribeye, or you can't afford just eat what you can afford. Just make small incremental changes towards, just eating better. And then if they start having the symptoms, I mean, there's obviously other things that can be done, like the electrolytes, for sure. I'm still dealing with that, 70 days in. I'm still getting the leg cramps periodically at night, though I've mostly got that under control. It found that timing of the electrolytes throughout the day makes a big difference. So I was loading a lot of my electrolytes early in the day, and then I'd go to bed at night, and then I get the leg cramps. And I'm like, well, I need to change my strategy. So I started pushing more of the electrolytes towards the middle and the end of my day. And that seems to help a lot for sure. So, yeah.
That's useful to know, because, yeah, sometimes, like yourself, a lot of people will, myself included, will load the electrolytes in the morning, but, if
Great.
you're experiencing leg cramps, you might wanna space it out or do it later in the day.
Yeah. And I think probably part of, for me, it's more unique for me because I had gastric bypass, I have absorption issues. So I have to take a whole heck of a lot more, and I don't really necessarily absorb everything that I take in, because I was already taking 2,000 milligrams of magnesium before bed. I was already doing that on top of everything else, and was still having issues. So probably what I'm doing is probably more than I think most people would have to do. But because I have the absorption issues, I kind of have to overcompensate and time everything right. And I'm still on supplements, and I will be on a lot of these supplements still for the rest of my life because absorption issues. There's some things that I'm just not going to be able to stop taking. I'm just going to have to keep taking them. But if you don't really have the absorption issues, you should. Most people should. Would imagine most people don't would have to do all the stuff that I have to do. The other thing, if anybody's watching, and they're having the leg cramps, magnesium lotion or magnesium oil spray, amazing, amazing, amazing. Because I've gotten up in the middle of the night, I put the lotion on, and within a few minutes, actually, it's actually quite incredible how fast it works. But yeah, there is that still. That's fun. I'm hoping eventually that goes away because it's getting kind of annoying. Um, I'm taking an absurd amount of magnesium and electrolytes, and I put an obscene amount of salt on my food. It's actually obscene. It's almost too much. But I feel like if I don't get all of it, I'm not going to. I'm afraid to cut back. Honestly, I don't want the cramps.
Right. So Katlyn, how can people reach out to you? Do you have any social media, YouTube channel, anything like that?
I started a YouTube channel. It's the bariatric carnivore, and then I'm on Facebook, Instagram, same handle.
I'll link to all of those in the show notes. Thank you
Okay.
so much for coming on and sharing your story, Katlyn. I really
Yeah.
appreciate your time.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It was good talking to you.